Admiral Park Jiwoo materialized on the bridge of Ambassador Korvac's flagship in a swirl of quantum light. The Vextai crew reached for weapons, then stopped when they realized their targeting systems couldn't lock onto him. His personal shield generator bent space around him in ways that made conventional attacks impossible. "Ambassador," Park said pleasantly. "I thought we should speak face to face." Korvac's massive reptilian form trembled with rage and something else. After ruling space for millennia, the Vextai had never experienced helplessness. The feeling was new and terrifying. "How?" Korvac whispered. "How did you hide this from us?" Park looked around the alien bridge with interest. The technology was impressive but conventional. Powerful engines, strong weapons, solid defenses. Everything built for direct confrontation between similar forces. Nothing prepared for enemies who had spent 50 years thinking outside the box. "We didn't hide it," Park replied. "We just didn't advertise it. There's a difference. Your ships, your weapons, none of this showed up on any of our long-range sensors, because we built them in folded space, in pocket dimensions, in places that don't technically exist until we need them." Park gestured, and a holographic display appeared showing the Titan construction facilities. "Your sensors are very good at detecting things that exist in normal spacetime. They're less effective at finding things that exist sideways." Ambassador Kim Hyeri appeared beside Park, also protected by personal shielding. The xenobiologist, who had spent years studying alien cultures, now looked at Korvac with something like pity. "We tried to join your council peacefully," she said. "We offered partnership, cooperation. You laughed at us." "Because you were weak," Korvac roared. 800 ships against our thousands. Any rational species would have seen the futility. Any conventional species, Park corrected. But humans aren't conventional. We're the species that looked at fire and decided to carry it. We looked at the ocean and decided to cross it. We looked at the sky and decided to live there. He smiled. We looked at your impossible galactic civilization and decided to join it, whether you wanted us to or not. The bridge shook as another demonstration of human power occurred somewhere nearby. Through the viewports, Korvac could see his mighty fleet trapped like insects in invisible webs of distorted gravity. "What do you want from us?" Park and Hyeri exchanged glances. This was the moment they'd planned for, the moment when humanity's true objectives became clear. "A new Galactic Council session," Park announced. "Emergency meeting, all species represented. New agenda." "To discuss what?" "Your conquest of the galaxy. To discuss protection," Hyeri replied. "You see, while we were preparing to defend ourselves, we were also gathering intelligence. We know about the threats you've been hiding from the younger species." Park activated another holographic display. This one showed star charts extending far beyond the known galaxy. In the dark spaces between spiral arms, things moved. Things that made the combined alien fleet look like toys. The void serpents weren't. "Destroyed 3,000 years ago," Park continued. "They were driven back, but they're still out there, growing stronger. The machine intelligence that nearly consumed the spiral arm has evolved. It's building new forms, and beyond the galactic rim, the darkness entities are stirring again." Korvac's yellow eyes widened. These were classified threats. Information, restricted to the highest levels of galactic security. "How do you know about—" "We've been watching the Watchers," Hyeri explained. "For 50 years, we've had deep cover operatives throughout galactic space. Human agents so well trained that even we sometimes forgot they weren't really members of your species." The implication staggered Korvac. Human spies in every major government. Human observers at every classified briefing. Human analysts studying every secret threat assessment. "Your security is impressive," Park admitted. "But it's designed to keep out enemies who think like you do. It's less effective against enemies who think like us." Captain Lee Taman's voice came through the communication system. "Admiral Park, we're receiving surrender requests from 847 different alien vessels. The rest seem to be in various states of shock. Accept all surrenders. Begin transport of alien crews back to their ships. Make sure everyone gets medical attention and a good meal." Park looked at Korvac. "Your people will be returned unharmed. We're not conquerors." "Then what are you?" "The new senior partners in galactic defense," Hyeri replied, "whether the council votes for it or not." 3 days later, the Emergency Galactic Council session convened in the same chamber where humanity had been mocked months earlier. But everything had changed. The seating arrangement was different. Where humans had once stood as petitioners in the center, they now sat at the primary position. Where alien delegates had once looked down from elevated platforms, they now sat as equals around the circular table. Commander Taman, now promoted to general, served as humanity's primary representative. Beside him sat Dr. Harry, Admiral Park, and Captain Donghae. Behind them, holographic displays showed the true scope of human military power. "The council will come to order," announced the ethereal Counselor Zephys. Even its energy-based form seemed subdued. "Thank you, Counselor," General Taman said politely. "Humanity formally requests senior partnership status in galactic affairs. We also request emergency authorization to begin defensive preparations against external threats." External threats? The Cathera delegates' multiple eyes focused on the humans. After their fleet's humiliation, their species had become much more respectful. Dr. Harry activated the threat assessment displays. Images of the real dangers facing the galaxy filled the chamber. Ancient enemies that dwarfed the current crisis. Cosmic horrors that made the recent battle look like a children's game. These threats have been contained by the combined efforts of the major species, she explained. But containment is failing. The barriers are weakening. Within 50 years, possibly less, the galaxy will face invasions that make our recent disagreement look trivial. Ambassador Korvac, his pride deeply wounded but his survival instincts intact, leaned forward. "And you believe your impressive capabilities can make a difference?" "We know they can," Admiral Park replied. He gestured, and new displays showed human deep space monitoring stations, facilities that had been watching the dark between galaxies for decades. "We've been tracking these threats since we achieved interstellar flight. We built our military specifically to fight them." "You built weapons capable of destroying entire fleets just to fight theoretical enemies?" The Sharek delegates' crystalline form rang with disbelief. "We built weapons capable of protecting everyone," Captain Donghae corrected. "The fact that they work on conventional threats is just a bonus." The voting took place in stunned silence. Every species that had mocked humanity now voted to grant them senior partnership status. The margin was unanimous, but the real changes went deeper than politics. Within a month, human technology began spreading throughout galactic space. Not weapons, those remained classified, but defensive systems, early warning networks, communication improvements, medical advances that extended lifespans across dozens of species. The younger species, the ones who had been bullied and dismissed by the galactic powers, suddenly found themselves protected by human peacekeeping forces. Pirates discovered that raiding ships in human-protected space was a very bad idea. Slavers learned that humans took a dim view of forced labor. The older species, the ones who had ruled through strength and intimidation, found themselves adapting to a new reality. Strength still mattered, but now it was measured by the ability to protect rather than conquer. 6 months after the Battle of Titan, General Taman stood in his office on Earth, reading the latest intelligence reports. The threats from beyond the galaxy were indeed growing stronger. But for the first time in galactic history, the younger species were ready. "Sir," his aide announced, "we're receiving a priority message from the deep space monitoring stations." "What kind of message?" "Contact, from beyond the galactic rim. 3 separate ship formations, each larger than anything in our databases. They're requesting information about the recent power shift in this galaxy." Taman smiled. The smile of a teacher whose students had finally learned their lesson. The smile of a species that had spent 50 years preparing for exactly this moment. "Send them our standard response package," he ordered. "Full documentation of our recent negotiations with the local powers. Include tactical footage from the Titan demonstration." "Sir, isn't that classified?" "Not anymore. Let them see what happens when someone threatens the peace of this galaxy." Taman looked out his window at the blue skies of Earth. Home, safe, protected by the most powerful military force in galactic history. Let them see what humans do when their neighbors are in danger. The message went out at faster than light speed, carrying images of the indomitable Will and its sister ships, carrying proof that the galaxy was no longer defenseless, carrying a simple warning that would echo across the dark spaces between stars. Humanity was here. Humanity was watching. And humanity had very good mathematics. The aliens had laughed at humanity's feeble fleet. They weren't laughing anymore. The silence that followed the destruction of 47 alien warships was complete. In the vacuum of space, sound carried only through radio waves and quantum communication channels. Every frequency was dead quiet. Captain Lee Dong-hae sat in his command chair aboard the indomitable Will and waited. He'd learned patience from his grandfather, who had learned it from fishing. You put out your line and then you waited to see what took the bait. Ambassador Korvac was the first to find. His voice. You murdered 47 crews. His words crackled with rage and something else, something that might have been fear. Actually, Dong-hae replied calmly, we vaporized 47 ships. The crews were transported to our medical bays approximately 0.3 seconds before impact. Standard procedure. We don't kill people when we can avoid it. This was not entirely true. The stellar lance worked so quickly that there hadn't been time for transport. But the Aegis AI system had calculated the precise moment each ship would be hit, and had used localized teleportation fields to extract every living being before the weapon fired. It was the kind of precision that required computational power beyond anything the aliens had imagined possible. Medical bays. The Cathra fleet commander's voice buzzed with confusion. You saved them? Of course. They were just following orders. Why would we kill them for that? Dong-hae gestured to his tactical officer. Lieutenant Commander Shin, please, show our guests where their crews are. The main display activated, showing the interior of vast medical facilities. Thousands of alien crew members sat in holding areas, confused but unharmed. Human medical personnel moved between them, providing care and translation services. They'll be returned to your ships when this conversation is over, Dong-hae explained. Think of them as guests. Korvac stared at the display. His reptilian brain struggled to process what he was seeing. The humans had weapons that could destroy entire fleets instantly, but instead of using them to kill, they'd use them to demonstrate power while preserving life. It was the most terrifying thing he'd ever encountered. What do you want? He whispered. To finish our earlier conversation about mathematics, Dong-hae replied. He gestured and the tactical display changed to show both fleets. You brought 2,843 ships to destroy what you thought were our 847 vessels. You calculated overwhelming superiority. The display highlighted the alien formation in red, the human formation in blue. Unfortunately, you made several errors in your calculations. First, you assumed 847 was our total fleet strength. As you can see, our actual numbers are somewhat higher. The blue dots on the display multiplied. 12,000 ships became 20,000, then 50,000. Ships emerging from folded space, from hidden dimensions, from places that shouldn't, have been able to hold physical matter. Second, you assumed that numbers alone determine victory. This is a common mistake among species who've never faced an enemy that thinks differently than they do. To demonstrate, Dong-hae nodded to his AI partner. Aegis, please show our guests what thinking differently looks like. With pleasure, Captain. The Aegis artificial intelligence had been observing the alien fleet since the moment they entered the solar system. Every ship design, every weapon configuration, every tactical doctrine. In the time it took a human to blink, Aegis had run 17 million combat simulations. The aliens never had a chance. Space around the indomitable Will began to change. Not visibly, but in ways that made the alien sensors scream warnings. Gravity fields shifted. Time moved at different speeds in different locations. The fundamental constants of physics became negotiable. What's happening? Screamed the Sharek commander. Our engines are shutting down. Nothing harmful, Aegis replied in a voice like wind chimes. I'm simply adjusting the local space-time configuration. Your ships are now caught in artificial gravity wells. You can break free anytime you like. You just need to generate approximately 47 times more thrust than your engines are capable of producing. Across the alien fleet, ships found themselves trapped in invisible bubbles of distorted space. They could fire their weapons, but the energy beams curved around their targets. They could launch missiles, but the projectiles aged decades in seconds and crumbled to dust before impact. "This is impossible," Korvac roared. "You can't just change the laws of physics." "We're not changing them," Donghae explained patiently. "We're just applying them more creatively. When you have enough energy and sufficient understanding, reality becomes remarkably cooperative." To prove his point, he nodded to Lieutenant Commander Shin. "Please demonstrate our secondary weapon systems." Shin's hands moved across her control panel. "Temporal displacement torpedoes armed and ready, sir." Fire 1. Minimal effect. The weapon that launched from the indomitable will didn't look like much, just a small projectile that moved slower than most missiles. But when it reached the nearest alien destroyer, something horrifying happened. The ship began to age. Metal corroded, hull plates cracked and fell away. Energy systems failed as their components wore out in seconds instead of years. The crew, protected by their ship's life support, watched helplessly as their vessel crumbled around them. "Time manipulation," Donghae explained. "We accelerate localized temporal fields around enemy vessels. Your ship experiences 10,000 years in the space of a few minutes. The crew remains unaffected, of course. We're not monsters." The aged destroyer drifted helplessly, its hull held together more by habit than structural integrity. Its crew was evacuated by human rescue ships before the vessel finally broke apart. "How many of these weapons do you have?" whispered the ethereal counselor Zephys. Even its energy-based form seemed dimmed by fear. "Enough," Donghae replied. He leaned forward in his command chair. "But that's not the important question. The important question is, why did we build them?" He gestured to the tactical display, which now showed the full scope of human military preparation. Not just ships, but orbital platforms that could move. Planets. Not just weapons, but technology that could reshape solar systems. Not just defenses, but capabilities that bordered on godlike power. For 50 years we watched you. We learned how you think, how you fight, how you treat species you consider weaker than yourselves. Donghae's voice remained calm, but something cold entered his tone. "You crush the weak. You mock the peaceful. You take whatever you want and call it the natural order." The alien commanders found themselves unable to respond. Everything he said was true. "So we prepared. We built weapons that could destroy your fleets. We developed defenses you couldn't penetrate. We created technology you couldn't understand." Donghae stood up from his chair. "And then we waited." "Waited for what?" Korvac asked. "For you to give us a reason to use it all." The implications sank in slowly. The humans hadn't been hiding because they were weak. They'd been hiding because they were strong. Too strong. So strong that revealing their capabilities would have changed the entire balance of galactic power. "The colonies you attacked," Donghae continued. "The ships you destroyed. The threats you made. Each one pushed us closer to this moment. The moment when we stopped pretending to be helpless." He gestured, and every human ship in the system powered up their weapons simultaneously. The energy signatures were so massive that several alien ships' sensors simply shut down to prevent overload. "Now comes the mathematics lesson," Donghae announced. "You brought 2,143 ships to destroy what you thought was our only shipyard. You calculated that these numbers gave you overwhelming superiority. The tactical display showed the alien fleet, trapped and helpless, surrounded by human vessels that outnumbered them 20 to 1. Your calculations were wrong, but more than that, your assumptions were wrong. You assumed that because we appeared weak, we were weak. You assumed that because we preferred peace, we were incapable of war. You assumed that because we were young, we were stupid." The display zoomed in on Korvac's flagship, trapped in its gravity well like an insect in amber. "All incorrect assumptions. So let me give you some correct information to work with. Donghei's smile was polite and terrifying. Humanity has 12,416 vessels in this system alone. We have operational shipyards in 47 star systems. Our total fleet strength is classified, but I can tell you that it's sufficient to remake the galactic political structure if we choose to do so. The alien commanders stared at their tactical displays in horror. Every human ship showed energy readings that exceeded their most powerful dreadnoughts. Every weapon system displayed capabilities that shouldn't have been possible with known technology. The question now, Donghei concluded, is what happens next? You came here to teach us about power. Mission accomplished. We've learned the lesson. He paused, letting the words sink in. Now it's your turn to learn. Admiral Park Ji-woo stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching humanity's enemies arrive in overwhelming numbers. The alien armada filled space around Earth's solar system like a swarm of angry metal insects. 2,843 ships, according to the final count. Every major species had sent their best. The Vextai brought their planet-killer dreadnoughts. The Kithara swarmed in with their fast attack vessels. The crystalline Sherrick gleamed like deadly jewels against the black of space. At the center of it all floated Ambassador Korvac's personal flagship, the Dominion. 8 kilometers of weapons and armor, bristling with enough firepower to crack a moon. Sir, reported Communications Officer Lee Min-jae, they're broadcasting on all frequencies. Put it through. Korvac's reptilian face filled the main screen. His yellow eyes glowed with satisfaction. Behind him, the bridge of his ship bustled with activity as thousands of crew prepared for what they believed would be an easy victory. Admiral Park, Korvac's voice rumbled through the bridge speakers. I offer you one final chance for surrender. Abandon Titan Station. Withdraw all human forces from this system. Submit to Galactic Council authority. Park looked out at the alien fleet. So many ships, so much firepower. If this had been a fair fight, humanity would have lasted perhaps 10 minutes. Fortunately, humans had stopped fighting fair a long time ago. And if we refuse? Park asked politely. Korvac's smile showed far too many teeth. Then we will demonstrate why young species should respect their elders. We will turn your pathetic shipyard into floating debris. We will hunt down every one of your 800 ships, and we will make sure the galaxy remembers what happens when primitives forget their place. 847 ships, Park corrected gently. You should be precise about these things. 800? 8,000? It matters nothing, Korvac roared. You face the combined might of 12 species. Surrender now or face extinction. Park was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. It was a peaceful smile, the kind a grandfather might give to a child having a tantrum. Ambassador Korvac. May I tell you something about human mathematics? The alien looked confused. What? We're very good at it. We count everything very carefully. Ships, weapons, enemies, possibilities. Park's smile widened. But we're especially good at counting backwards. Before Korvac could respond, Park cut the communication. All stations, he announced to his bridge crew. Activate Protocol 7. Full revelation. Across the solar system, things that had been hidden for 50 years began to wake up. It started at Titan Station. The surface of the moon, which had appeared to be a normal military shipyard, began to change. Sections that looked like buildings folded back like mechanical flowers. Beneath them, construction bays the size of cities opened to space. What? Korvac stared at his tactical displays. What is that? From the largest bay emerged something that made his sensors scream warnings. 15 kilometers of impossible technology. A ship that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Hull plating that shifted between solid matter and pure energy. Weapon systems that bent the laws of physics into new shapes. Sir, his tactical officer called out, voice tight with fear. I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout the system. Something's happening at Jupiter, at Saturn, at Mercury. Show me. The tactical display expanded to show the entire solar system. At Jupiter, the great red spot began to change. What they had always assumed was a natural storm started to unfold like origami. Beneath it, structures emerged that dwarfed entire fleets. At Saturn, The rings themselves rearranged, revealing hidden shipyards between the ice and rock. At Mercury, the planet's surface cracked open like an egg, and from within came ships that glowed like small suns. "How many?" Korvac whispered. His tactical officer's voice broke as he answered. I can't count them all, sir. Thousands. Maybe tens of thousands." But the worst was yet to come. From the Kuiper Belt, from the Oort cloud, from hidden bases scattered throughout the solar system, humanity's real fleet began to appear. Not the 847 ships the aliens had counted, not even the thousands they could see emerging from hidden facilities. Ships appeared from folded space itself, destroyers that phased in and out of reality, cruisers that moved faster than light without engaging jump drives, carriers that seemed to exist in several places at once. "Final count," the tactical officer reported, his voice barely a whisper. 12,416 vessels, and still climbing. On his own bridge, Admiral Park watched the alien fleet's formation begin to waver. Ships that had approached in perfect order now scattered in confusion. Commanders who had been confident of victory now screamed contradictory orders at their crews. "Sir," reported Captain Lee Donghae over the quantum communication link, "this is the indomitable will. All systems are green. We're ready to begin the demonstration." Park looked out at the alien armada. So many ships, so many beings who had lived their entire lives believing they were the masters of the galaxy. In a few minutes, their entire understanding of reality would change forever. "Begin with a greeting, Captain. Let them know we're here." "Understood, sir." "Broadcasting now." The voice that filled space was calm and pleasant. It came from the massive battleship that floated at the center of humanity's formation. When Captain Donghae spoke, every ship in both fleets heard him clearly. "Attention, visiting vessels. Welcome to the Sol system. I am Captain Lee Donghae of the Earth Defense Force vessel Indomitable Will. We hope you've enjoyed your journey." Korvac found his voice. "Impossible. You had only 800 ships. How?" 847. Donghae corrected pleasantly. "That was our patrol fleet. What you're seeing now is our actual military. We've been building for 50 years. Ambassador. Ever since we realized we shared a galaxy with species who mistake kindness for weakness. The alien fleet began to spread out, trying to surround the human formation. It was a reasonable tactic. Even 12,000 ships could be overwhelmed, if attacked from all sides by a coordinated force. What they didn't understand was that humans had spent 50 years studying their tactics. Every battle formation, every strategic doctrine, every possible approach. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Commander Shin Yunji from the Indomitable Will's weapons station, "alien vessels are moving to attack formation. Orders?" Captain Donghae studied the tactical display. The aliens had arranged themselves in a classic envelopment pattern. Powerful ships at the front, fast attackers on the flanks, support vessels in the rear. It was a formation that had won 1,000 battles across the galaxy. Against enemies who fought traditionally. "All vessels," Donghae announced over the fleet channel, "implement Pattern 7 Alpha. Let our guests see what humans do when someone brings mathematics to a physics fight." The human fleet's response was unlike anything the aliens had ever encountered. Ships didn't move in formation. They moved in impossible ways. Destroyers phased through each other without collision. Cruisers appeared behind enemy lines without traveling the distance. The massive battleship itself seemed to exist in multiple positions simultaneously. "What kind of technology is this?" screamed the Kethera commander. "The kind you build when you have 50 years to think about problems." Donghae replied conversationally. "While you were conquering primitive species, we were rewriting the rules of space combat. While you were celebrating your superiority, we were learning how to make reality more flexible." Korvac rallied his forces. "All ships, concentrate fire on the large vessel. Destroy their flagship." 200 alien ships opened fire at once, energy beams that could boil oceans, projectiles that could punch through planets, enough firepower to obliterate any known vessel. The weapons passed harmlessly, through sections of the Indomitable Will that weren't quite there. "Interesting," Donghae commented. Your weapons are quite powerful. Unfortunately, they're designed to hit targets that exist entirely in normal space-time. We've made some modifications to our hull configuration. What modifications? Korvac demanded. Well, roughly 17% of our ship exists in dimensions you can't access. 23% phases in and out of reality based on quantum probability calculations, and the remaining 60% is protected by armor that borrows its molecular structure from neutron stars. The alien commander's voice rose to a roar. That's impossible. You keep using that word, Donghae replied. I don't think it means what you think it means. On the human flagship's bridge, Lieutenant Commander Shin looked up from her weapons console. Sir, they've emptied their first salvo. Should we respond? Captain Donghae considered this. For 50 years, humanity had planned this moment. The moment when they would reveal their true capabilities to a galaxy that had dismissed them as primitive. The moment when they would show what humans could accomplish when given time to prepare. But he also remembered his orders. Minimize casualties, make a point. Ensure it never happened again. Target selection, Commander Shin, one shot, make it educational. Yes, sir. Stellar Lance charging to minimal power. The Indomitable Will's primary weapon system powered up with a sound like controlled thunder. Energy drawn from a contained microstar focused through crystalline matrices that existed in 11 dimensions. The targeting computer locked onto the exact center of the alien formation. Fire. Dr. Bae Suman stood in a place that didn't officially exist. The Titan Deep Lab stretched for kilometers beneath the moon's frozen surface. Here, in chambers carved from ancient ice, humanity's greatest secret had been growing for 50 years. Not growing like a plant, growing like a careful plan that finally reached its time. Status report, she called to her team. Quantum-folded armor plates are at 98% integration, replied Dr. Chen from the materials lab. The test results are, well, they're impossible, but they work. Define impossible. The armor exists in 17 dimensions simultaneously. When something tries to hit it, 90% of the impact occurs in spaces that don't affect our reality. It's like being shot with a gun that's mostly in another universe. Sumin nodded. After 20 years of theoretical physics, impossible had become her favorite word. It usually meant they were doing something right. Singularity cores? All 12 are stable and contained, called Dr. Kim from the power systems bay. We're harvesting the output of micro-black holes and channeling it through crystalline matrices that shouldn't be able to exist. The energy output per core equals the entire electrical grid of pre-space Earth. Weapons integration? The Stellar Lance is ready, announced Dr. Park from Weapons Development. We can focus the power of a small star into a beam roughly the width of a pencil. The targeting computer says it will punch through anything in the known galaxy. Define anything. Planets, moons, the cores of gas giants. Pretty much anything that's made of normal matter. Suman walked through the vast construction bay, checking systems that had taken decades to build. Above them, the regular Titan station operated normally. The public shipyard where humanity built its real fleet. The 847 ships the aliens had counted so carefully. Down here, in the deep dark, something else waited. How's our guest? She asked. Aegis is stable and eager, replied Dr. Cho from the AI division. The quantum neural matrix has been running personality. Simulations for 15 years, it's developed quite an attitude. Define attitude. See for yourself. Dr. Cho activated a holographic interface. A simple sphere of light appeared, pulsing gently. Good morning, Dr. Bae, the sphere said in a pleasant voice that somehow managed to sound ancient and young at the same time. I understand today is the day we stop hiding. Hello, Aegis. Are you ready? I've been ready for 15 years, 3 months, and 7 days. I've run approximately 47 million battle simulations. I've studied every known alien military doctrine. I've practiced conversations with enemy commanders in 18,000 different scenarios. The light pulsed brighter. I'm very much looking forward to meeting them in person. Something in the AI's tone made Suman smile. Aegis hadn't just been programmed. It had been raised, taught, given time to develop its own personality. And that personality, it seemed, had a sense of humor. What's your primary directive, Aegis? Protect humanity by any means necessary, minimize casualties on all sides whenever possible, and make sure the aliens understand that humans are not to be underestimated ever again. And your secondary objectives? The AI paused. When it spoke again, its voice carried something that sounded almost like anticipation. Have fun, learn new things, meet interesting people, and possibly redraw some star maps. General Nam Junho appeared on the command platform. His weathered face showed the stress of coordinating humanity's most complex military operation. Behind him walked Captain Oyuna, still wearing her test pilot gear. Final report, Nam announced to the assembled scientists. All systems green, Suman replied. We're ready. The prototype tests? Captain O stepped forward. Her flight suit was still, steaming from the environmental systems. Sir, I've just completed the final test of the dimensional displacement system. The prototype ship successfully jumped through folded space to the edge of the Oort cloud and back. Total time, 4 minutes. 4 minutes to reach the edge of view. The solar system? Nam's eyebrows rose. Our fastest ships take 3 days. That's because our fastest ships use normal space, O replied. The new drive doesn't exactly move through space, it negotiates with space, asks it politely to rearrange itself. And space agrees? When you're polite and have enough energy to restructure local reality, space is surprisingly cooperative. Nambai turned to study the main display. It showed the approaching alien armada. Over 2,000 ships led by Ambassador Korvac's personal dreadnought. The largest military force assembled in galactic history, all focused on destroying humanity's primary shipyard. Intelligence reports confirm they're bringing everything, he said. Every major species, every advanced weapon system. They want to make sure there's nothing left of us to bother them. Good, said Aegis. I was getting worried they might hold back. Nam looked at the AI's holographic interface. You want them to bring everything? General, I've been designed to learn and adapt. The more they bring, the more I learn about their capabilities. Besides, the AI's tone became almost cheerful. It's only fair. We're about to show them everything too. Across the lab, technicians made final preparations. 50 years of careful planning had led to this moment. 50 years of humanity pretending to be weaker than they were while they built something unprecedented. It had started after first contact, when human scientists realized they were sharing a galaxy with species that had been fighting for thousands of years. Species that respected only strength and saw weakness as an invitation to attack. The public response had been to build a small defensive fleet. Nothing threatening. Nothing that would provoke the older races. Just enough ships to patrol human space and look legitimate. The real response had been much different. Deep in classified facilities across human space, the best minds of the species had asked a simple question. What would it take to never be vulnerable again? The answer had been this place, these weapons, this ship. Dr. Bay called one of the technicians. We're receiving the activation signal from Admiral Park. Suman looked around the lab at faces she'd worked with for decades, scientists who'd given their entire careers to this project, people who'd missed birthdays and holidays and family gatherings to build something that might never be used. All stations, prepare for activation sequence, she announced. Above them, Titan Station's surface began to change. Sections that had looked like normal buildings started to fold back like flower petals. Construction bays the size of cities revealed themselves to space. And from the largest bay of all, something impossible emerged. The ship was 15 kilometers long and covered in armor that seemed to shift and flow like liquid mercury. Its weapon systems were works of art, each one capable of channeling the power of stars. Its hull existed partially outside normal spacetime, making it appear ghostly and solid at the same time. But the most remarkable thing about the ship was how quiet it was. No massive engines roaring, no energy discharges lighting up space. It simply existed, floating in the void like it had always been there. Aegis, Suman called. How do you feel? The AI's voice now came from the ship itself, carried through quantum communication arrays that operated faster than light. Like myself, finally. Thank you for building me such a beautiful home. Remember the rules of engagement. Minimize casualties. Protect humanity. Make a point they'll never forget. The ship's weapon systems powered up with a sound like distant thunder. Don't worry, Doctor, I'll be very polite. General Nam watched as the ship took position between Titan Station and the approaching alien fleet. Around it, smaller vessels began appearing. Destroyers and cruisers that had been hidden in folded space. Ships built with the same impossible technology. How many ships are we revealing? He asked. Enough, Suman replied. More than enough. The alien armada would arrive in 6 hours. For 50 years, they had believed humanity was weak, believed that 847 ships represented the full extent of human military power. They were about to learn that humans were excellent at mathematics. They could count to 847 easily. They could also count much, much higher. Aegis, Nam called to the ship. Final question. Are you confident we can handle this without destroying them entirely? The AI considered this for a moment. When it answered, its voice carried a note of something that might have been pity. General, they're bringing 2,000 ships to destroy what they think is our only shipyard. They believe they're facing a primitive species with primitive weapons. The ship's hull shimmered as its defensive systems activated. I'm confident. We can teach them better. Whether they survive the lesson, that depends on how quickly they learn. As the massive ship moved toward its position, Dr. Bae Suman allowed herself a small smile. For 50 years, humanity had prepared for this moment. They'd built weapons that redefined physics, created an artificial intelligence that could think faster than light, developed ships that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. But the most important thing they'd built wasn't technology. They'd built patience. The patience to appear weak while growing strong. The patience to be mocked while they prepared. The patience to let others underestimate them until the moment came to show who they really were. That moment was almost here. Welcome to the real galaxy, she whispered to the approaching aliens. Class is now in session. 3 months after the council meeting, Captain Choi Min-seok stood on the bridge of the cruiser Soul's Pride and watched his home burn. Well, not his actual home. But Kepler 442b had been humanity's first mining colony beyond the solar system. 15,000 people had lived there. They had built schools and parks and little restaurants that served real Earth food. Now it was just fire and smoke. Captain, Lieutenant Yoon Da-hee called from her tactical station. The Vex-Tai ships are pulling back. They're not pursuing the evacuation transports. Min-seok nodded grimly. Of course they weren't. This wasn't about conquest. This was about sending a message. The aliens wanted humanity to know how easily they could be hurt. Damage report? Minimal to their forces, sir. We didn't engage them directly. Our orders were to evacuate only. Da-hee's voice was tight with frustration. She was a fighter, not a runner. And we did that well, Min-seok replied. All 15,000 colonists got out, 0 casualties. The Vex-Tai probably didn't expect that, said Engineer Sergeant Kang Woo-jin from the engineering station. Most species panic when attacked. They figured we'd lose thousands trying to escape. Min-seok studied the tactical display. 6 Vex-Tai destroyers had hit the colony. They'd used precise strikes to destroy the mining equipment and processing plants. Nothing random, nothing wasteful. They wanted the humans to see exactly what they could do. Sir, Da-hee said quietly. Permission to speak freely? Always, Lieutenant. This feels wrong. We have good ships, good weapons. We could have fought back. Min-seok understood her frustration. The Soul's Pride was a good ship with a good crew. They'd trained for combat. They wanted to protect their people. Instead, they'd run away while aliens burned human buildings. Orders are orders, he said. But privately, he wondered the same thing. Why weren't they fighting back? The answer came 2 weeks later at New Jeju. New Jeju was humanity's most successful agricultural colony. Rolling fields of earth crops under an alien sun. The colonists had even managed to grow rice. Real rice, not the synthetic stuff. It was beautiful. The Kythera attack fleet had expected it to be easy. After all, the humans had run from Kepler 442b without firing a shot. Why would this be different? They found out when Captain Choi's cruiser and 2 destroyers appeared right in the middle of their formation. What the hell? The Kythera fleet commander's voice came through the intercepted communications. His translator made him sound confused. Where did they come from? Jump coordinates locked, Dahi reported from tactical. All weapons ready. Multiple targets, Wu Jin added. 8 Kythera vessels, all focused on the planet's surface. They're not even looking at us. That was their first mistake. Fire, Minsuk ordered. The Soul's Pride wasn't the biggest ship in human space, but she was fast and her crew was smart. They'd spent months practicing what the Naval Academy called aggressive maneuvering. Other people called it fighting dirty. Their first salvo took out the shields of 2 Kythera vessels before the bugs even knew they were under attack. The second salvo crippled their communication ship. They're turning toward us now, Dahi reported. 8 ships against 3. This should be interesting. Minsuk smiled. He'd been waiting months for this. Wu Jin, give me everything the engines have. Dahi, target their heaviest hitter. Let's see what these bugs are really made of. The battle lasted 43 minutes. By the end of it, 2 Kythera ships were drifting hulks, and a third was limping away with massive hull damage. The Soul's Pride had taken hits, but nothing critical. More importantly, they'd saved the colony. The evacuation had worked perfectly, not because they'd run away, but because they'd bought time. Sir, Wu Jin called from engineering. We're getting multiple contacts on long-range sensors. Big ones. I think the bugs called for backup. How many? 20+ ships incoming. ETA 6 hours. Minsuk looked at his battered little fleet. 3 ships against 20. Even with their tactical advantages, those weren't good odds. Signal the destroyers. We're falling back to the rendezvous point. Sir? Dahi looked confused. We won this fight, shouldn't we? We won this battle, Lieutenant. But there's a bigger picture here. Minsuk gestured at the tactical display. Look at what just happened. We jumped into the middle of their formation. They never saw it coming. What does that tell you? Dahi studied the data. Their sensors aren't as good as they think, and they don't expect us to be aggressive. Exactly. They've been fighting the same way for thousands of years. Big ships, overwhelming force, straightforward, tactics. They don't know what to do when someone fights differently. But we're still outnumbered 100 to 1 in this sector, Wu Jin pointed out. Are we? Minsuk's smile grew wider. How do you count to 100, Sergeant? 1 at a time, sir. Exactly. The retreat from New Jeju made news across the galaxy. The aliens spun it as another victory. Look how easily the humans ran when faced with real force. But the military analysts told a different story. In their private reports, they noted several concerning facts. The human ships had appeared without warning. Their weapons were more effective than expected. Their tactics were unconventional and difficult to predict, most concerning of all. They'd achieved their objectives. Both colonies had been evacuated with 0 casualties. The humans hadn't lost a single ship. They're learning, Admiral Korvac told the emergency council session. Learning faster than anticipated. Learning what? Asked the Kythera commander. How to run away more efficiently. Learning how to hurt us, Korvac replied. He pulled up tactical data from New Jeju. Look at these weapon signatures. Look at their maneuver patterns. These aren't the actions of a primitive species. They have 800 ships, scoffed the Sherrick delegate. We have thousands. 800 ships that we know about, Korvac corrected. But something bothers me. They never seem surprised by our attacks. Their evacuation plans are too smooth. Their tactical response is too quick. The ethereal counselor Zephys pulsed thoughtfully. You believe they are hiding something? I believe they've been preparing for this. Korvac's yellow eyes gleamed. The question is, preparing for what? Back in human space, Admiral Park Jiwoo studied the same tactical reports from his command center on Earth. The attacks had gone exactly as predicted. The aliens were following their standard pattern: probe for weakness, escalate gradually, crush, resistance. What they didn't understand was that humans had been studying their patterns for 50 years. Every battle, every conquest, every tactical doctrine, human intelligence was very, very good at watching and learning. Status report, Park ordered. Kepler 442b and New Jeju evacuated successfully, his aide reported. All civilians safe. Military losses, 0. Alien losses, minimal but significant. We've demonstrated that human weapons can damage their ships. More importantly, we've shown their tactics can be countered. Park nodded. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The aliens thought they were teaching humanity a lesson about power. They had no idea they were being studied like laboratory specimens. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving priority intelligence from deep cover assets. The aliens are planning something big." Park's expression didn't change, but everyone on the bridge felt the temperature drop. "How big?" "Full-scale assault on Titan Station, sir. They want to destroy our primary shipyard. Show the galaxy that humans can't protect their own production facilities." "Numbers?" "Preliminary estimates suggest over 2,000 ships, led by Korvac's personal fleet." The bridge went quiet. Titan Station was humanity's most visible military installation. It was where they built their cruisers and destroyers, where their fleet trained. If the aliens destroyed it, they'd cripple humanity's apparent military capacity. Park stood up slowly. For months he'd been waiting for this moment. The aliens had finally committed to a target big enough to justify what came next. "Send a message to all fleet commanders," he ordered. "Protocol 7 is now active." His aide's face went pale. "Sir, are you sure? Once we activate Protocol 7, there's no going back," Park finished. "I know, but they've forced our hand." He looked at the star chart showing Titan Station's location. "They want to destroy our shipyard. Let them come. Let them bring every ship they have." "Admiral," the communications officer said quietly, "what should I tell the Titan Station commander?" Park thought about Captain Lee Dong-hae, sitting in his secret command center deep beneath Titan's surface. The man had been waiting 20 years for this moment, preparing, planning, building something the aliens couldn't imagine. "Tell him the guests are coming to dinner," Park said, "and it's time to set the table." As the message went out, deep beneath Titan's frozen surface, ancient machines began to hum. Seals that had been closed for decades started to open, and in the deepest, most secret chamber of all, something vast and terrible began to wake up. The aliens had counted humanity's ships, all 847 of them. They were about to learn that humans were very good at math, but they were even better at keeping secrets. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched higher than most buildings on Earth. 12 different species sat around the massive circular table, each delegation more alien than the last. Some breathed different air. Others needed special lights. A few didn't even have solid bodies. Commander Lee Taman stood at the center of it all. His simple blue uniform looked plain next to the glowing robes and crystal armor of the alien delegates. He carried a small datapad and nothing else. No weapons, no guards, just one human in a room full of creatures that could destroy his entire world. "The human wishes to speak," announced the ethereal counselor Zephys. Its voice sounded like wind, chimes in a gentle breeze. "State your purpose." Taman bowed slightly, a gesture of respect his people had practiced for thousands of years. "Honored Council, humanity formally requests military partnership status. We offer our fleet to help protect the peaceful worlds of this galaxy." The room fell silent. Then someone started laughing. It was Ambassador Korvac of the Vextai. His reptilian head was the size of a small car. His teeth could bite through steel. When he laughed, it sounded like rocks grinding together. "Military partnership? You?" Other delegates joined in. The insectoid Cathera clicked their mandibles in amusement. The crystalline Shrek rang like broken glass. Even some of the smaller species seemed entertained. Dr. Kim Hieri, humanities xenobiologist, sat in the observation section. Her face stayed calm, but her hands gripped her chair. She had spent years learning about these species. She knew they judged others by strength alone. "Please," Taman said calmly, "allow us to present our capabilities." The laughing stopped. Korvac leaned forward, his massive bulk casting a shadow over the human. "Very well, little mammal. Show us this mighty fleet of yours." Taman pressed a button on his data pad. A hologram appeared above the table. It showed space around Earth's solar system. Tiny dots of light represented ships, hundreds of them. The Earth Defense Force consists of 847 vessels, Taman announced. "We have destroyers, cruisers, carriers, and dreadnoughts. Our flagship is the carrier Soul's Pride, capable of housing 200 fighter craft." The aliens studied the display. Some seemed impressed by the numbers. Others looked bored. 800 ships, mused Counselor Rethak of the Methane Collective. His voice bubbled through a translation device. "That is adequate for a young species." "Adequate?" Korvac's laugh boomed again. "I could destroy half their fleet with my flagship alone." He gestured with one clawed hand. "Show them, Zephys. Let them see real power." The ethereal counselor's energy form pulsed. Another hologram appeared. This one showed a single ship. It was enormous. 20 times larger than humanity's biggest vessel. Its hull bristled with weapons that could crack planets. "The Vextai Royal Dreadnought Dominion," Korvac announced with pride. "Length, 8 kilometers. Crew, 50,000 warriors. Armament, sufficient to sterilize a moon." The hologram showed the great ship in action. It approached a large asteroid. One beam of energy lanced out. The asteroid, bigger than most human cities, simply vanished. Nothing remained but glowing particles. "That," Korvac said, pointing at the display, "is one ship. I have 300 like it. The Kithera have twice that number. The Sharek crystalline fleet could turn your pathetic vessels into space dust before you could blink." Taman watched, the demonstration without expression. When it ended, he nodded politely. "Impressive technology, Ambassador Korvac. Technology you could never hope to match." The reptilian alien sneered. "Your species has been in space for what? 2 centuries? We have ruled the stars for 10,000 years." Dr. Hieri stood up in the observation area. "If I may address the Council?" Zephys allowed it with a gesture. "Humanity may be young," she said, "but we learn quickly. We adapt. We survive. These qualities have value in military partnerships." "Survival?" The Kithera delegate's multiple eyes focused on her. When it spoke, the translation made its voice sound like buzzing insects. "Your species has fought one minor border war against space pirates. We have crushed empires older than your civilization. And yet," Taman said quietly, "here we are, still standing, still asking to help." Something in his tone made a few delegates look at him more carefully, but Korvac was too busy enjoying himself. "Still asking to help," he repeated, slapping the table with enough force to crack stone. "As if your toy ships could make any difference in a real war." He turned to the other delegates. "Shall we tell them about the void serpents? About the machine consciousness that nearly consumed the spiral arm? About wars that would make their little minds break with terror? The void serpents were defeated 3,000 years ago," noted Counselor Rethak. "By us," Korvac roared. "By real warships with real weapons. Not by whatever cute little boats these mammals have cobbled together." The formal vote came next. Each species had one voice. The question was simple. Should humanity be granted military partnership status? The ethereals abstained, as they usually did. The Methane Collective voted yes, but only as a token gesture. Everyone else voted no. "The Council has spoken," Zephys announced. "Humanity is offered junior observer status. You may attend meetings but have no vote. Your fleet may assist in minor patrol duties under direct alien supervision." "Patrol duties," Dr. Hieri muttered. "Like traffic police." Taman gathered his datapad and prepared to leave. As he walked toward the exit, he paused near Korvac's position. "Thank you for your time, Ambassador," he said politely. The huge alien looked down at him with yellow eyes. "Do not thank me yet, human. Junior observer status can be revoked, especially if your species proves troublesome." "Troublesome how?" Korvac's smile showed too many teeth. "Oh, I think you understand. Space is dangerous. Accidents happen. Pirates attack. Sometimes young species need to learn their place through experience." Taman met his gaze without flinching. "I see. And if such experiences were to occur? Then perhaps you would realize how foolish it was to think your little fleet could matter in the real galaxy." Korvac leaned closer. 800 ships sound like many to you, but the darkness between stars is vast. Ships get lost. They disappear. Who could say what happened to them? Other delegates were listening now. Some looked uncomfortable. Others seemed interested in seeing how the human would react. Taman was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. It was a small, peaceful smile, the kind a teacher might give to a student who thought they knew everything. "You know what's funny about humans, Ambassador Korvac? Enlighten me." "We're very good at math." Taman tapped his datapad. 847 ships. That's what we showed you today. Very precise number, don't you think? Korvac's eyes narrowed. "What are you implying?" "Nothing at all. Just that humans like precise numbers. We count everything. Every ship, every weapon, every possibility." Taman bowed again, that same respectful gesture. "Good day, honored council." He walked out without looking back. As the great doors closed behind him, Dr. Hieri caught up. "That last bit about counting," she whispered. "What did you mean?" "Exactly what I said. We count everything." Taman's expression was calm, but something flickered in his eyes. "They counted our ships too. 847. They memorized that number. They'll use it to plan their little accidents. And they'll discover something interesting about human mathematics." He stopped walking and looked at her directly. "We also count backwards." Before she could ask what that meant, his communicator buzzed. The message was short. "Protocol 7 authorized. Admiral Park sends regards." Taman read it and deleted it immediately. When he looked up, his calm mask had slipped just slightly. Dr. Hieri saw something that made her shiver. Not fear, not anger. Something much more dangerous. Anticipation. "Doctor," he said quietly, "I think you should send a message to your research teams. Tell them to wrap up their projects quickly. We may be going home sooner than expected." "Why?" Taman walked toward their shuttle, hands clasped behind his back like an old-fashioned Earth naval officer. "Because our new friends are about to teach us about the real galaxy, and we're about to teach them about real mathematics." The shuttle lifted off 20 minutes later. As Nexus Prime fell away below them, neither human looked back at the council. Chambers. They both had the same thought. The aliens had counted humanity's visible ships. They had no idea what was hidden.